This video we will be discussing sex. So
You're supposed to be mature when you talk about
I
sex.
know, but I can't be, man. See, this is just proof that it's a taboo. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to ask you if you think sex is a taboo and why you think so.
For me personally, I do not think that sex is a taboo subject. I do realize that for a lot of people, especially our age, from the age of, let's say, 15 to 18, sex is a taboo subject for the simple fact that there are a lot of things to, let's say, be afraid of or that are kind of scary when it comes to sex, such as, let's say, STIs or pregnancy. There's a lot of emotional connection, just regardless of whether you're in a relationship, like a full-fledged relationship, or it's like a one-night stand. So it's like a very large and kind of hairy topic. And also because most of our parents or society itself, let's say teachers, just people older than us, the older generation, who, some of them have come from a time where, sex is kind of like you only have that with, one single person who you actually want to have a family with or something along those lines. And over the past couple years, past like couple decades, it's transition is something that's less sacred, maybe is maybe you want to call it. It's put it's not on as a high pedestal in that sense. So that's why I still think it's kind of tabooish. But for me personally, like I joke about it openly because it's the fact that if it's taboo, it has like power over you. That's kind of my philosophy on it. So being very open with my sexuality and just being able to not be crude about it, but to be able to openly discuss it, both maturely and immaturely, I do think has a large benefit just to the overall conversation.
Yeah. And do you think it will change over time? The fact that it's such a taboo in some.
It really depends. I mean, ever since the birth control pill, things have like really changed dramatically for the sexual conversation, and especially nowadays with the LGBTQ community and things like Me Too. I mean, these movements like get very controversial, very I wouldn't say revolutionizing, but they carry a lot of weight to them in terms of how society overall views sex. I think nowadays for teenagers growing up, I'd like to see that sex isn't treated, let's say, with disrespect or with just complete like naivety. I think that's how you say it. So that they at least understand that there are consequences to it, but at the same time they shouldn't be afraid of course, expressing themselves sexually with another person.
Okay. Second question for you is, do you think sex education should be mandatory in schools?
Yeah, I definitely believe that. For me, I like to kind of always like compare it to how, if as like a parent, you might want to like start educating your kid on drinking, like letting them like sip beer here and there, or sip like a bit of wine, just so that when they do get to that age where things like sex, drugs, alcohol do become part of their social environment, that they're not shocked by it, that they know that they've already been kind of exposed to it, and that they actually know how to deal with it responsibly and get to enjoy themselves at the same time.
Yeah. Do you think that you like learn enough that you get enough sex education at school, or do you think it should be more? Or
I mean, I like to see it go a little bit more in depth and a bit more open. I think for the most part they take it from this very kind of simple and again they kind of hesitant position where they simply say, yeah, this is how the female and male reproductive system works. Use condoms. This is a bit about pregnancy, and that's about it. As far as my sexual education in Australia and Canada goes, I would like to see them a little bit talk just more openly about just overall just like sexuality in general. I know like what they generally did in Australia was that they'd separate the guys from the girls, and they talk about like for guys they talked about like masturbation and like pubic hair and that kind of thing. I think what might be better. Might be better would be maybe to test it out and see like how it would happen if you, let's say, just had the whole class together with
Yeah.
boys and girls. Because if you're dividing boys and girls, then
Ain't
you're already
turn it into a taboo.
yeah, you're already like kind of you're already like kind of implying that yeah, there's of course there are inherent differences with male and female sexuality, but let's say as a topic like masturbation, which is talked to very openly among males, myself included. I notice it, like I can take it like as a joke, but I'm also like I can also take it very seriously. Like it is a part of male sexuality, but at the same time, it's not inherently just male sexuality. And I think that girls who, let's say, do masturbate shouldn't feel alienated or
Yeah.
shouldn't feel like it's something that something's wrong with them. Like it's just human sexuality instead of just like inherently male, inherently female. But of course, it's some differences. Let's say, you know, females, they have periods, men don't. They go through pregnancy, men don't. But things like STIs, masturbation.
I think it's good for both
Yeah.
females and males to know like everything about the other one. as
Yeah,
well.
because like because that's the thing, like you're gonna have sex either with someone from the same sex or most likely someone from the other sex, from the opposite sex. Like if you can't even talk about sex with your partner, you're not ready for sex. Just simple as that. Because you're going to a world that's just very like alien to you
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yeah,
So you
that-
need to become familiar.
Yeah, that was another question I had. Whether you, it's kind of a stupid question, whether you think there's like a certain like age where people are like ready for sex, or whether you think it just varies a lot.
It's
from person
it's
to
not
person.
necessarily like a certain age. Like some people lose their virginity when they're, let's say, 15, 14. Some people lose it when they're 18, 19, 20.
Or later.
Or even later. Some people like lose it when they're like they keep it until they're married.
Or never.
Or never. Like, you know, you got priests, but then again, that's a whole different topic for another time. But I think it's got to do more with the maturity of the individual versus, let's say, the age. Age doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
mean that you're mature. I mean, we could take a look at our class and like you could analyze our class and be like, okay, overall they're mature in these aspects, but let's say when it comes to these aspects they're not mature. But that's got nothing to do with age.
Yeah.
So it should be starting to be like kind of natured from an early age. So then again, like when then you don't run into, it's a less likelihood of running into instances where with the male where males are, you know, they don't run into situations where they're confused about themselves as to how to approach a girl with decency, with respect, and they're not taking actions which will lead them to be accused of rape or accused of sexual assault. And also that females learn how to read those signals and be able to keep themselves safe as well. Because that's the other important part of it. Like, again, sex is dangerous. It's not like a simple equation or formula. There's a lot of factors to it. And again, it can be dangerous for both parties. So exposing people to it earlier on in a not, I don't want to say safe, because that makes people think that is like you need to censor a lot of it, but it's just the fact that we're open about it and can deal with it maturely. That's what needs to be taken off from an earlier age.
Okay. What is your opinion on porn?
Porn? Oof. No, honestly, it's like that's a strange thing, because of course as a guy, let's be honest here, porn consumers for the most part, like what, at 80% male, especially younger males, and a lot of like as a guy who grew up in, let's say, Western culture, you start looking at porn like the age of like 13, 14. But like for guys, we're exposed to sexual content very early. Until like kind of the before puberty hits, it kind of like, I don't know, I think it kind of scales up a bit, because then you start noticing the differences between guys and girls. And in porn, things are very over exaggerated. But the thing with porn is that it's a very easy, like it's almost like a drug. It can get very addicting, and that's a dangerous thing. Because of course there are some people who are actually addicted to porn, and there are some people who would rather have porn than an actual relationship, just because of the fact that they can get off, you know, they can climax from themselves, and that's dangerous, as well as the fact that it teaches people to be addicted to short-term pleasures, and people should be very careful with that, because again, it's in my opinion, things that are that are more enjoyable are things that last longer, that are more, I don't know, maybe sustainable, or let's say that aren't as cheap as porn, to be honest. But it's a tough thing to control, because again, it is one of those things that's very easy to go to as a guy. But yeah, that's my thoughts on porn.
And what do you think about the fact that lots of boys get their sex education from porn?
I think there's like sex education, like there is certain things that porn can teach you, but there are other things that it can teach you. But even let's say what might look good on porn might not actually feel good in real life. You know, whether it be certain things like say oral sex, certain things with oral sex that you may think is what is pleasurable in porn isn't what actually isn't pleasurable in real life. And that's just an example. Guys do at least get some sense of how to carry out sex, if that's how you want to phrase it appropriately. But at the same time, it's a bit of an illusion. It's a bit of an over exaggeration. There's much more to sex than just two guys, two girls, or a guy and a girl just going at it, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Another question: do you think that sex plays an important role in relationships?
Definitely. Sex definitely does play an important role in relationships. I feel like if you cannot get intimate with someone else, then I don't really think you are in a relationship, to be honest. I'm not saying that relationships are based purely on sex. What I am saying is that sex is a factor that goes into the equation.
Okay.
At least some sort of sexual intimacy. It doesn't say like you have to go to fourth base, but you know, there has to be some sort of sexual contact, whether that's kissing to oral sex to whatever it is you guys do as people. That all counts as sexual contact.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.